If you like pina coladas, unfortunately you're at the wrong video. Google must have brought you to the wrong place. But we are gonna make a paper pineapple lantern today. But you don't wanna juice it for your drink. But anyway, let's take a look at what I have here in front of me and let's start putting this thing together. And I'm sorry for being cheesy. I woke up this morning and I was like, well, I'm putting together a pineapple. And of course, that song came to my head. So anyway, we're gonna begin by assembling our base, which is made up of these 3 pieces here, okay? And I've already pre-folded everything, just like that. And what we're gonna do, you'll notice that there are some tiny little tabs here that we are going to apply our glue to and then glue over to our little neighbor, this guy here. Now I'm gonna spread this out all the way up to the very edge there. Then we're gonna tuck it under and just make sure that you're getting it lined up correctly. And just press and hold that for a second. Now this is, I think this is a doodle bug, or actually this is a Bow Bunny paper. It's not as porous as my AC cardstock, so it may take a few extra seconds to really dry, but that's okay. Looks like that's got a good hold. And we'll move on over to the next tab here. And just kind of dab that right up to the very edge. And get this one lined up. It's essentially the same process on all 4 sides. It's a pretty simple base, and we got a nice little hole there. I've got this, I think this is like a knockoff Luminera. It's still nice though. So if you're having any sort of tropical or summer party, want to add a little bit of ambiance, a little festive ambiance, it's a nice little piece. Or maybe you've got a friend who loves the tropics, you want to make them something special they can light up at night. It's a cute little piece here. It's very elegant too. It's got a lot of nice little cutouts. And you'll see that when it's all said and done. Okay, so we just got one more here. Should probably be a little more patient, but we'll see how it goes. Okay, last little tab. I'm trying to get that glue out to the very edge there. Tuck that under, line it up, and then just give it a press. There we go. All right, so now we've got our bottom here, and you want to find this piece here. Okay, that's our bottom. And we're going to begin by simply gluing just one side down, just to get it nice and anchored. It's going to set the tone for the rest of it. And I'll take my finger and get that glue right out to the very edge. Okay, and then take your piece, this square piece, and just line it up as precisely as possible. Try to get it right out to the very edge there. Run your finger along the edge to kind of ensure that you've got it in the right spot, and then you can let it drop and use our table to press down to really get it to hold. There we go. Nice clean edge for the most part. Good enough. We can always go back in and clean things up if necessary. Now we're just going to take our glue and get it on the other 3 tabs here. So I'll start with a nice coat towards the center of the tab and then a nice thin line right out to the very edge that I'm going to spread out to the very, very edge. Just like that. There we go. And one more. Perfect. All right, I'll lift these tabs up slightly and just push this down. And now focus your attention on the side opposite of the side that it's already hinged on. Try to get that nice and straight and aligned. The other sides will just pretty much fall into place. And just run your finger along the perimeter Make sure it's making good contact right up to that very edge. And that looks good. Perfect. Okay. And you just press down a little bit, just make sure that it's getting good contact. And then check your work. Just kind of scope out the perimeter, make sure everything is sitting nice and flush, and it is. And then we've got this little piece here, and this is just to kind of help the pineapple stay in place. So we're just going to put glue on one little tab here, and then fold this over and connect it right there. Just give it a little squeeze. I'm back to my AC cardstock, so I know that I can work more quickly. It just kind of just sucks that glue in and sets so nicely, which is another reason why I love this paper. Okay, so the next tab, put it behind this little wall here and squeeze. Can move on over. Same thing. Here we go. And last little tab here. And just tuck that right behind this piece here and squeeze. Okay, now what we're going to do is we're going to put this piece right here where the cutout already exists. So we'll need to put glue on the entire bottom here. Just like that. And then I'm going to try to get a little bit right out to the very edges as well. I want that to sit nice and flush and look seamless if possible. There we go. And really all you need to do is just make sure that it's square and just pop it right on top of the existing hole there. And we can kind of lift it up and just press from the inside like that. Okay, so there we go, and the pineapple is going to sit right on top of that. Now, we do have these beautiful little decorative pieces that are going to go right here. They're going to be, the top of this is going to be flush with this surface here, okay? So what I'd recommend doing is probably just one section at a time. Get your glue onto one of these sections, just half of it. And by the way, you do need to fold it. Okay, I just had a little power surge there. Okay, and just get that nice and flush with the very top here of this piece, and make sure that the corner is sitting nice and flush with the corner of the actual base. And there we go. Okay, that's pretty simple actually. Now we can kind of let this flap down and get our glue on the other half. There we go. And it should just kind of fall right into place. Maybe just grab the other end of it and make sure that you get it nice and aligned with the very top of that. Okay. There we go. And just have one more side here. I'm gonna do the same thing. And before you put your glue on and place it, just make sure that everything looks good here on the edges. Mine seems to be matching up pretty much exactly where it should be. So get your glue on this last piece here. Well, half of it anyway. Okay. And again, just focus on trying to make sure that it's nice and flush with the top there, and should line up nicely with its neighbor. And it should also sit right on this little edge perfectly. Try to make it look as seamless as possible. Okay, that looks good. Give that a few extra seconds here to hold. And then you can go ahead and get our glue on the other half. just lay that down right into place. There we go. Cool. All right, so there is our little base, and we can go ahead and start working on our little pineapple here. You'll notice that the candle is going to sit in there nicely. You've got a little bit of wiggle room in case you don't or can't find this exact candle. This is, I think, 2.5 inches in diameter. Well, this one's just over 2, but I believe that the hole is 2.5 inches. So anything that's 2.5 inches in diameter should work. And this candle is roughly about 6 inches tall. Okay, so we can put this off to the side for now. And let's grab the bones of our pineapple. Okay, so these are the pieces that we're going to begin with initially to construct what I'll call the bones of the project. And I've already taken and folded all these little teeth. Okay, so this is going to be the front or the back. These pieces are exactly the same, so it doesn't matter. And we've got one side, and then we've got another side, and that's pretty much it. So the side with the tab, that's going to be your top. This is going to be your bottom. Okay, so what we're going to do, and we've done this before. I'm going to show it to you this way real quick, but the teeth are actually going to go on the front of this just to make it easier, because we've got some overlays that are going to go on top of that later. But for the bones of this thing, we're going to put the teeth on the face of this print. Okay, but I'm going to flip it over because I'm going to use my table to kind of help me make it easier. I'll show you what I mean. So we're going to start by just I'm just going to do dots of glue. And you guys have seen this before. So I'm just going to put glue on 4 of these first. Okay, and I'm going to try to get it nice and lined up with the very bottom. Try to get it as close to where it needs to be as possible. And just kind of hold it in place for just a moment. Let's just get those first 4 tabs, pardon my head for a second. Let's get those first 4 tabs to set. And I'll flip this over so you can see what I'm doing. Okay, so you see what happened here. So the tabs are now on the face of this. I'm just doing this upside down, or not even upside down, just using my table as leverage. So I'm just kind of moving this out of the way so that I can more easily apply glue on these little tabs here. And I'm just going to slide them under. And I'm using this hand here to push up against this piece while I'm pushing down with my fingers here. Okay, so I'm just going to flip this over like this, just so that I can access the tabs. And I'm just going dot, 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 dot. I'm just going to do them all. And just remember to push this up against this piece so that it just kind of hugs that natural curve of the face of the pineapple here. And if you do it right, this top part should meet up with the existing tab there at the top. If it's a little bit off, it's okay, but it should be pretty darn close. Mine's pretty much spot on. Okay. There we go. Okay, so you can see the end result here and what it's going to look like. So all we're doing is just kind of repeating that process. Well, a couple more times. We're going to do the other side now. And again, I'm going to start at the bottom because I feel like we've got to get the bottom right so that it can sit nice and flush and nice and flat. I think it might be a little bit easier to gauge if we have the bottom correct as opposed to the top. And if we have the bottom correct, the top should just fall into place. So again, I'm just getting that nice and aligned, pushing it up against this piece while I'm pushing down to get that glue to set between this face piece and the tabs in this case. Okay. And then we'll flap these down. And just throw some dots on here. Dot, 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 dot. And tuck those tabs under. Make sure that it's following that curve. And then you can push down to get that to set. Okay, moving on here. Just a few more tabs to go for this side. I'm just going to try to do them all here. Tuck those under, follow that curve, push from the outside just to make sure it's nice and taut, and then press down with your finger on the inside to help that glue really set. There we go. Okay, so far so good. That looks nice. Looks pretty straight at the bottom. Let's see how that sits in a moment. Okay, so now that this is all in place, I'm going to take this piece here and we're going to do the same thing. It's going to be a little bit different this time around because one side's already kind of in place. But once we get this anchored, I think it'll go pretty easily for us. So I'm going to flip this open like this. And let's just start with like the first 4 tabs maybe, just like we did. I'm going to press those down. And initially, I think I'm just going to try to get that first tab aligned as accurately as I can. Let that kind of anchor this piece. And then I can flip this down. You can still get your hand in there. So I'm doing the same thing we just did. I'm pushing this way up against this piece on the bottom, obviously. Just getting that to set. Okay, you can see those 4 tabs are holding nicely. So we can flip it down like this and apply glue on the next, I don't know, 5 or 6 maybe, 5 or 6 tabs. I can probably go more. Flip those down. I'm going to put this back down on my table. Hopefully you can see this. And just push in as you're pushing down. Make sure it's hugging that curve. Okay. So far so good. And I think we're at a point now we can probably just do the rest of these tabs. It's anchored pretty nicely into place. I'm not really too concerned about it. Okay, flip those over and put that down on my table. And again, make sure you're wrapping it around nicely. And then hold the top a little bit. I'm holding the top here because if you don't, it kind of wants to pull back. And that's the part there where we really want to make sure that you're really hugging that curve and that angle. Okay. Yeah, looks good. Yep. No complaints there. All right, so all that's left to do now is just get this other place anchored in place, or other side I should say, anchored in place. I'm gonna start with the bottom again. Maybe just do the first tab just to make sure that we get that aligned as accurately as possible with the bottom. Just like that. I'll give that a second to set. There we go. Okay. Now we can put that down on our surface, and I'm just going to hit maybe about 5 tabs, I think. So we've got 5 little dots of glue there. On the next 5 tabs, we'll fold those over, put that down on our surface, and I'm pushing up against the wall with this hand as I'm pushing down with my fingers here. Let's get that to stick. And you can see how quickly this is going to go together. Okay, so now that it's nice and anchored for us, I feel confident doing a bunch more. Let's do like 6 or 7. Fold them over, put them down on your surface, and just, again, make sure that it's following that curve. And press down from the inside. I'm just running my thumb up against that very edge where the tabs are. The tabs meet that face. Okay, there we go. And that just leaves, we got 5 tabs left here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Fold those over. I'm going to put those down on my surface. And holding the last tab in place up at the top here, just making sure that it's curving along with, you know, this natural shape here. You can see I've got one little tab up here that didn't want to play nice, so I'm just going to add a little extra glue there. Okay, and I think that's it. Yeah, looks pretty good. Let's see. All right. Okay, so next thing we're going to do is we're going to put the little top on here just to finish this thing off. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to glue it to one side first. So let me zoom out a little bit for you guys. All right, so let's get our glue on this tab here. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a little bit of glue right up to the very edge on this side here. And I'm going to spread that out just so that sits nice and flush. Okay, so do your best to get that nice and centered and kind of just butt it up to the score mark like that. Okay, and I can move that out of the way temporarily while we apply our glue on the remaining tabs here. And then I'm going to throw a little bit of glue here, but I'm going to put some glue right on the very edge here. Spread that out. Get that out to the edge. Okay, let's flare these up a tad so that as we bring this down, it grabs more of that surface area. And just make sure it's nice and centered, nice and aligned. There we go. And we can flip it over, push down from the inside. There we go. Okay. All right, so the structure is pretty much in place. At this point, we can do one of two things. We can either work on the face or we can work on the sides. I think it'll probably be easier to work on the face right now, so I'm going to do that. And both sides are going to get this treatment here. We've got this gold piece that's going to go on like so. And when we place this on here, you just want to make sure that, well, everything looks in place, meaning you can see how when I put this down, you've got nice even borders around all these little cutouts. If it's off a little bit, it's pretty noticeable. And obviously you want to make sure that it kind of hugs the edges as well. So do your best when placing this just to make sure that it is nice and centered, okay? I'm going to try my best here. So a lot of little details here. So when you're applying your glue to this piece, I would probably start, well, I would probably do some larger dots here in the center. They won't dry as fast, and then they'll actually hold. So maybe, you know, a little bit of a thicker amount of glue there. Okay. Just get them in all those little crannies if possible. And then I'm going to go a little bit lighter around the perimeter, and I'm going to try to get that glue out to the very edge. Okay. And if we need to, can always go in, and I have a feeling I'm going to need to anyway, just kind of paint the very perimeter with some additional glue just to make it sit nice and flush. Now I'm just trying to look at as many of these little cutouts as possible just to make sure that my alignment is correct. Okay, and that looks pretty spot on, as well as the outside. I think I did a pretty good job there. I can flip this over and press down from the inside. There we go. That's not too bad, actually. Okay, take a look at your perimeter. Mine's actually sitting pretty flat, which is a good sign. Yeah, look at that. Not bad. Okay, and we've got an overlay for that. It's going to go just like this. And the key here is just to make sure that it's hugging the roundness of our little pineapple. So let's just get that in place here. I'm kind of doing like a little pigtail sort of glue pattern here. Just trying to hit the edges as much as I can. Okay. And I probably would focus on making sure that the bottom is nice and flush, as well as aligned here, because I feel like if you do that, the rest of it will pretty much fall into place, which it just did. It's a pretty straightforward piece. There we go. There we go, look at that. Okay. So I'm going to repeat that process on the other side. I'm going to flip this over and just push down from the inside. Okay, so we've got that side on. I'm just going to flip it over, do the same thing the other side. So as I mentioned before, because this has so many little nooks and crannies here, I'm doing a nice thick dot of glue here in between these little sections, and then we'll just work the perimeter. That should do it. Nice little line. Okay. And again, just making sure that I get it as centered as possible. There we go. That's the spot. And then once it's in place, you can put it down on your surface, press down from the inside. Get that to really bond. And there we go. Okay, and this paper is really thin. And I can see that this side, just this little area here, didn't really take. So I'm just going to show you this little process here for those of you that are not familiar. I'm just taking a scrap piece of paper and throwing a little bit of glue right onto the little edge of one section, and then I can literally just slide it right in between the two layers. Just paint some extra glue on there and then just press that down just to make that look nice and seamless. And that looks nice. Okay, so we'll just put our second little overlay on, just like that. Get our glue. Let me hold this up. It's a pretty unique little pattern there on the back. Probably a little too much for this project, but pretty cool. Okay, there we go. And I'm focusing my gaze here on the very bottom just to make sure that that's nice and flat and flush with the existing bottom, and then the rest of it automatically pretty much falls into place. You might have to nudge it around slightly, but for the most part that should do the trick. And there it is. Okay, we'll put that down on our surface, press down from the inside. And there we go. So you can see here how this is going to look when we put it on our base. And of course, we still have some more pieces here. Well, we've got this little gold piece that's going to go right on top here. So we can get that glued down. And it feels kind of tropical here in Chicago today. It's almost Florida-like, very humid. The rains just kind of keep coming in and out. Okay, so there's that. And then we've got two pieces, they're both identical, that are going to go on like this. Okay, now we may need to flip it just to make sure that we've got it aligned correctly. I don't know if you can hear that rain. It's coming down, but that's how that's going to go on. So what I'd suggest doing is, well, probably just gluing like half of it. So let's throw some glue on maybe just the top third, maybe a little bit further down, not much though. And then we definitely want to make sure that we get our glue out to the very edges, especially up at the top, where we definitely don't want it peeling back or peeling off. Okay, so I'm going to start by aligning this little center cutout. There's no glue here right now, so that's kind of a good way to gauge where it needs to sit. And now I'm going to go ahead and push down on the areas that have the glue. Try to keep it nice and taut. And then run your finger along the perimeters here. Make sure that it gets a good hold. Excuse me. And then we can flip this out and get our glue on the rest of it. So we don't have to try to do it all in one fell swoop. That could potentially be kind of daunting and a little more difficult than we need it to be. Okay. And again, make sure that you get some glue out to the very edge, the bottom. There we go. And just nice and gently, just bring that down and press it into place. And there we go. Okay. Got the fronts, got the sides, and got one more side here to do, and then we just need to put the little flower thing up at the top, whatever that thing's called. Just make sure that that looks good, and it does. So again, we're just gonna put glue on maybe the top third of this piece, and then focus a little bit of extra detail, or extra glue I should say, right up at the top. Okay. And I'm laying this down right over the center one there, making sure that that has a nice even border all the way around, and then I can press that down into place. And I pretty much feel confident that it will line up nicely for me and sit where it needs to. Okay, there we go. Now we can flip this open, get our glue on the rest of this. This gold paper is kind of weird. It's like, it's thick, but it's wobbly. I don't know how else to explain it. Okay, whoops. And just pull that down. Make sure it's nice and centered. And there we go. Whoops. gonna make sure that it's hugging the surface completely all the way throughout. Otherwise, you're gonna have little weird gaps, and we don't want that. There we go. Okay, so all that's left to do is to put our little flower element together and pop it on top. And there's 3 layers. 2 of them look like this. One of them looks like this. Okay, I don't know. I'll save that one. Okay, so I've numbered this one. This one has a little bit of a larger base, so when you fold these in, and you fold these in, take a look and you'll see that one of them has a larger base. This is going to be our first layer, okay? And as you can see here, each of these little leaves here has a little tab, and all we need to do is just take and put a little bit of glue on this tab and just glue it to its neighbor. And it's going to be standing up straight. So you want to just make sure that these line up nicely when you glue them together. And then we're going to train these so that they curl back just like a real pineapple. Okay, so let's get our glue on the next tab. This is going to go quick. This is pretty straightforward. Get that one in place. And just moving right along here. This paper is a little more porous. And it tends to set fairly quickly. Okay. Moving right along. One thing I found weird was, I don't know, this is just because of the internet, I guess, but the way that pineapples grow are not what I expected. They're kind of just like, I thought they were in trees for some reason, but they're not. So if you don't know what I'm talking about, do a Google search for pineapple growing. You'll see what they look like. It's pretty interesting. Okay. And that just leaves one more. He's kind of in the dark cavern up in there, so you have to stick your glue nozzle in there. But that's okay. And we'll get that one in place. Okay, so the idea is, since this is the first layer, this one is going to have the most pronounced scoring, or training, I should say. Okay, so let's can take it right here where the cut begins and train this down. And actually, I may even curl this down because I really want this to be coming down a lot. So I am literally going to take this whole thing and curl it like that. Okay. So don't use too thin of a dowel for this. I think this is a 5/16 inch dowel. And I'm just literally wrapping it around the dowel. Oops. Try to keep it consistent. If it's off a little bit, that's fine. I don't think that I've ever seen a pineapple that's that perfect. Okay. Here we go. And then we do have a little bit of just a little overlay for the bottom of this to give this a little hint of gold. So it picks up off the colors from the actual pineapple. Okay, just rolling it down. And there we go. Okay. And here is our little band. So we're going to get this glued on. And what I would suggest doing is just finding one of the sections in the middle and using that to anchor it into place instead of trying to get it all glued in one shot. So this is the one I just put glue on. Just make sure that it's nice and flush with the base, with the bottom, I should say. Okay, and hold that in place like so. Okay, give that a second to set. And that'll just make the rest of it that much easier once we get it in place. Okay, so that's got a good hold, and I can peel back the remaining sides here, and I think we could probably get away with doing the rest of them at the very tip there on the edge. Make sure you get glue right out to the very edge so that doesn't come peeling apart or away from our little pineapple leaves. I don't even know, I'm not a botanist, so I don't know for sure what that's called. Now that I don't know what it is, I'm gonna go look it up. And then someday, maybe on Jeopardy or somewhere random, I'll know what it is. Okay, so just putting glue on the other two, just wrapping it around nicely, making sure that it's nice and flush with the bottom there. Okay, there we go. So that is that. That looks nice. Okay. All right, so I'm gonna do the same thing with this guy here. And then we're gonna put him in there. And this one, we're gonna train this one too, but just not as much because we want it to gradually kind of stick up more. Okay, so I guess you could technically train first and then glue. I'm just gonna glue first so that as I train it, I can try to be more consistent. No wrong way of doing it, but I'm just gonna do it this way. And as I mentioned many times before, this is my first time making this project. So if I can do it, you can do it. We've got an amazing team that creates these. Our director, Ron, who designs and sketches everything out, and then Diana takes that and digitizes it and turns it into actual 3D models and files. And then I get, I'll show you here, this is the prototype that I was given. That is what Diana assembled after she created the prototype or the digital files, and then I get that and the cutouts, and I have to put it together for you guys. And sometimes I'll talk to her about things. This time around, for all three of these projects, I just kind of looked at what she did and was able to figure it out. And then I have to translate it for you guys into steps so that you can be successful too. So we're all kind of learning as we go. And I think actually that the fact that I can do this the first time around on camera, and this is, they always, well, within the last 2 years, everything that I make is the first time, and those are the pieces that you see on the website too. So that is a testament to the engineering and the design work from my team that I can do it without fail my first time around for you guys on YouTube. Okay, so just taking the final little tab here, tucking it behind its neighbor, giving it a few seconds to set. And now with this one here, again, we're gonna train this, but we're not gonna train it all the way from the bottom. We want it to be sticking up a tiny bit. So I'm gonna start maybe like towards the center here, and then just give it a slight curl, maybe a little bit more than that. Kind of like that maybe, okay? Worst case scenario, if we don't like it, we can always go in and finesse these things a little bit later once everything's in place, and just touch it up until it looks the way we want it to look. Okay, so I'm kind of starting basically in the middle here, not all the way at the bottom. And I can always untrain it. You can always kind of bring it back up later. That's kind of what I'm doing right now. So let's take a look and see. We're going to end up gluing this one into this one here. We're going to offset it a little bit. And that is not bad. But again, we can always fix it later if we need to. I'm going to throw my glue on the bottom of this piece here, the second one that we did. I'm going to insert it into this one here, offsetting it. Okay. Make sure you get it nice and centered. You can use a dowel or something to press down if you need to. There we go. Okay, you can see from the side, it's looking cool. And I do think maybe these need to stand up a little bit more, but that's fine. paper is very malleable and we can shape it in so many different ways. Okay, so finally, we've got this piece here, and all we're doing with this piece is, well, we're going to glue it into the shape of basically a square at the bottom. Okay, so what we can do is we can take some glue and put it on this tab. Went a little overboard there. And fold it a couple times until you form a square with it. Okay, that's going to be our innermost layer. And just press and hold that down for just a moment while it sets. And then we can take the rest of this and wrap it around. Now when you're gluing this down, try to tuck it in as much as you can. Okay. And hold that in place for a moment while it sets. You can put that down on your table too, if that helps. Okay, and then we just wrap the rest of this around like so. And we can take this guy here, and it may not wrap around completely, perfectly, and that's fine. Just do your best to get it all the way around, and then just glue it to the outside here. And hold that in place, let it set. And everything's still straight, but we're gonna train this out a little bit. Okay, the outside layer, using this as a reference, we're gonna train the first four a little bit, just a little bit more, actually a little bit less than the second layer. And then finally, the last layer, we're gonna train even less. Okay, so find the outer petals here and kind of start halfway and give those a curl or a train. Just like that. I'd say that's pretty good. Next one, train it a little bit. And I'm going to curl it. That's about right. And we'll train and curl. And the next one here, train and curl. And then the four in the center here, I'm just going to curl the tips. I'm not even going to train it. I'm just going to curl the tips like that. Okay. So we can take this end result here, we'll put it into the existing two layers and see how it all looks when it's all together. And if we need to, well, you see, that looks pretty darn good actually. I like that. I don't know that I'm really going to need to change that much, but okay, so you can throw a little bit of glue. If you've got some hot melt glue, that might work better, but that's good right there. And then just pop that right in the center, like so. And there you go. Okay. And then finally, last step is just to glue this onto the top here. Okay, so you're just going to put some glue on the bottom of this and just pop it right on top like that. Okay, so I'm going to do that and I'll let it sit for a little bit. But that pretty much concludes the assembly for our pineapple, which I hope you guys enjoyed. And I'd love to see your version of this. And it's going to be a really fun looking piece, I'm sure. Okay, well, there you go. And just do your best to make sure that you get it nice and centered at the top there. And hold it down for just a moment while it sets, but there you go. And you pop your little candle in here. And you've got yourself a fun, tropical, festive little project. So I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, please take a moment and hit that subscribe button on our YouTube channel. That lets me know that you like crafting with me. And I love seeing those numbers go up. So thank you for everyone that has already subscribed. And if you make this or anything from our new tropical bundle, we'd love to see it. So join us in the official group on Facebook by doing a search up at the top of your Facebook for Dreaming Tree Group. You can join myself and the 13,000 plus dreamers that inspire us daily. So I hope you had a great time. Grab yourself a pina colada, and I look forward to crafting with you again. Stay on top of all things Dreaming Tree and engage with us today. Get the latest news and enter in our giveaways on Facebook. Get inspired by following us on Pinterest. Be the first to see our new product launches on Instagram. Do you prefer Twitter? Yep, we're there too. Watch our beautiful product trailers and assembly tutorials on YouTube. For more information, visit www.3dsvg.com. Live, craft, love, and dream.